How's it going? Hey, happy Saturday. How's everyone doing? Happy Saturday. Hopefully everyone's having a good day. Super nice day out, at least in the Midwest. Oh, rookie mistake. You can see my light back there. Oh, I'll keep it for now. It's kind of bugging me, but oh well. Maybe you can't tell it's a light. Anyways, happy Saturday. How's everybody doing? How's the weather? All the normal pleasantries on Saturday. Hope everyone's doing good, man. It's we've had about. I'll start with weather. Hey, thank you. Daphne, how's it going? Hey, thanks for the resub. Man, tier 1, 6 months, 6-month streak. All right, thank you. Let's go. Hey, Wick Emmanuel, I saw that one earlier too. Thank you so much. Thanks for the sub, Manny. Thanks, appreciate it. I saw that one earlier, and that came in while we were in the intro, so I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Lights are going, all right. Yeah, so anyways, I was talking about that light. I put that light up to give a little bit more separation. I don't know if I like it or not yet. We'll see. Hopefully it looks a little bit, I don't know, a little more even. Sometimes it's washed out. But anyways, I don't know if those lights are ever going to stop either, too. Something's going odd with my lights. I'll let it go. I'll let it go for a minute. So anyways, man, how's everyone doing? I was kind of talking about the weather. I don't know. If you've been in the Midwest, we've had just like clouds and rain for like 2 weeks, it seems. Seems really cloudy and rain kind of off and on, maybe a little snow. But man, today it feels like spring again. It's warm, it's sunny, it's fantastic. Just outside for a little bit. Can't get too much sunlight though. Can't get too much sunlight. Oh yeah, that might fix it. That might fix it. All right, I'm gonna. Oh no, that did fix it. Thank you. I know why that fixes it because there's in the code that I wrote, every time you switch the lights, it has to switch the bottom lights too. So if it's stuck on flashing, I guess that's the quick way for me to do it is just change the theme. But then again, I don't want to. I can reset it to what it's currently at. Anyways, how's everyone doing? Happy Saturday. Hopefully you guys are working on something cool, something interesting. If not, hey, stick around and we'll talk about cool and interesting stuff that other people are working on. Yeah, I've been working on it. I know people usually ask me at some point what I've been working on. I've been working on tons of little things. One thing that I got out this morning, and then another bigger thing that I'm working on that's going to be out probably later this week. We'll see when I can get it done. But pretty cool stuff. Simplifies a lot of stuff. And so the video from this morning, it's short, but it kind of builds on what you're going to see later this week. So anyways. What are you guys working on? Let me know. What can I help with? I'm sure people are having either problems or questions, I should say. Challenges is probably a better way to put it. With Kubernetes, Rancher, K3S, Proxmox, you name it. Pi-hole, Portainer, you name all the things as far as Homelab goes, and I'm sure you guys have questions. But let me know for sure. So I'll answer the question. Everyone wants to know who was first. Mafney was first. And Mafney did see. So I was doing Mafney's always first, just kind of hanging out in the channel, at least first to chat, I should say. I was testing the bot, I was changing some colors, I was making sure my lights work, and then I cleared chat. And so Mafney said, I saw that. So if you didn't see what Mafney saw, Mafney was super early. PC Geek, how's it going, man? How you doing? Good to see you. Hopefully your RV or RV, yeah, it's RV. No, it's not RV. Camper that you bought is coming along well. I saw. Super excited for you, and I'm super jelly. Every time I see one of those, I'm like, what kind of tech can I jam in there? Hopefully it's going well. Yeah, Emmanuel, thank you so much for subscribing. How's it going? Banana, yeah, everyone testing my bot. Please test my bot whenever. Yeah. And yeah, about the Discord alerts. Yeah, something was up with Pingcord. So I use Pingcord to let people know who sign up that I'm live. I got a little nervous on this one. Usually Pingcord is 100% successful. I think I've only had one in the past where an alert didn't get sent out. And I went to their status page. They said, hey, we're having a problem. I was like, cool, no problem. So it was expected downtime or expected problems. This time I was like, ooh, it took a while to get out, but I get it. They probably have a lot of subscriptions to monitor, but it went out. So, and I did have the message already. I was like, this might be the first time I'm going to have to send it out. But anyways, talking about things that are in Discord. So if you're not in Discord, good segue into, you should probably join. ! Discord. Yeah, totally join. Morano. That's what I'm going with. Yay! How's it going? Yay! Wiki, Emmanuel. Hi, Tim. Oh, I thought this was many. Anyways, hi Tim. I'm building a server subsequent Homelab for Proxmox. Plex server and sandboxing in general. Should RAID be done bare metal via RAID controller before installing Proxmox, or should I leave the 22 drives unrated JBOD in Proxmox and do the software RAID, ZFS, and Proxmox? Yeah, great question. It depends if you want to use ZFS or not. Like Proxmox comes with first-class support for ZFS, which is a software RAID which has a lot of benefits to it. There are some pros and some cons, but with everything comes trade-offs. I'll say that, trade-offs. And should you do your RAID on a hardware adapter or do it in software? Personally, I would probably do it in software. I know that ZFS, uses a little bit of additional RAM, and that could be tuned too. But I would do it in software. I would do it with ZFS because you get so many benefits of having ZFS and Proxmox for snapshots, for backing up, for moving things around. If you ever go with a cluster, then it's probably a good idea to do it in ZFS. And plus ZFS, so those are benefits to Proxmox. And then, hardware RAID versus ZFS has so many benefits as well, like protection against bit rot and things like that. Me personally, I would do it in ZFS. I would do software RAID, ZFS on top of Proxmox. And that's not to say I haven't done hardware RAID before. I used to do a hardware RAID in Proxmox. This is when I first bought my R710. I was like, okay, I'm going to do hardware RAID because I don't have a HBA controller or something that supports IT mode on my controller. So I'm just going to do hardware RAID. I'm going to go old school and do it. And I had zero problems, but also very low visibility into what's going on. At least, when you have a ZFS, a software RAID within Proxmox, you have a lot more visibility on the drives, possibly wear, usage. It can trim appropriately, and it can do all the things that you would normally, not be able to see, except for within Proxmox itself. Like if you need to resilver is not the correct term, but if you need to rebuild an array because of whatever. You get that visibility inside of Proxmox. Anyways, I would totally go ZFS. Go ZFS unless you have a reason not to, I would say. My reason not to at the time, and reason not to for a lot of people, is sometimes you just don't have an HBA controller, so something that supports IT mode because it wants direct access to the disk. So yeah, totally. That's the way I'd go. I would, for sure. I was about to send it myself. Yeah. Oh man, I got a little nervous on that notification, but it's totally fine. If it didn't go out, it didn't go out. But yeah. Wiki Emmanuel sent a question, but not sure if it went through because I hit the 500 character limit. No, I saw it, and I saw that you had a lot of questions about Proxmox. I don't know if there was another one. I do see your specs. I don't see your H710P control 10 gigabit NIC. Well, this sounds pretty awesome. So it sounds like you got a great build. Like I said, I now that I can support ZFS because I have direct access to my disks, I always go with it. Yeah, good question. Yeah, if you are joining in, you have a question, you have a question about something you're working on or want to share something you're working on, let me know. I'd love to talk about it. I will say, because this, I put in the title and then I end up staying a lot later. I do need to cut today's short, not anytime soon, but I'm just saying it might not be, the 2-3 hours that it tends to be when I say it's going to be short. So, not everyone. Yeah, for sure. That was me anyways. Pizza Geek. Yeah. Everyone should come watch me. Yeah, I agree. But people have things to do, and I make the stream one and opt in. I already blast people with other notifications. I try to keep them to a minimum, and it's usually once a week, and that's not I think that's pretty okay. I don't know, but if they sign up for streams, they might get 2 notifications a week. But I think that's pretty small compared to if you think of apps or notifications that go off from other channels. Ooh, two a week, I'd be okay with that, as long as it's something I'm signing up for. Wick Emmanuel, I think this is one that I already answered, but you double posted. Should the RAID be done bare metal? Yeah, controller. I already answered that. If you need something clarified, let me know. I think you were posting that again just because you hit the character limit, but don't worry. I think it went through fine, and I saw it. D-Boz, Proxmox works better with JBOD. ZFS doesn't play well with hardware RAID. Yeah, and I would say though that the JBOD might be so I don't know a great way to do a traditional JBOD with Proxmox. There might be a way with ZFS in general, like a traditional just a bunch of disks. But anyways, I'll wait to see if you want to follow up for that. Homelab New, hi Tim, how's it going, man? Dude, how you doing? Homelab New, studying for exams now, final push. Can't wait to watch the backlog I've built up for your videos. Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, final push, dude. I can't believe it. I say this every time you mention school, but it just seems like, I don't know, a month or two ago, you were just taking off to start your master's. So, man, hope it's going well. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions. You probably have a pretty big backlog, maybe not. Depends on when you stop, but yeah, hopefully there's something there for you. Hopefully there's something there for you. I try to make something, a little bit for something for everyone who's interested in tech or home lab or even some software development sometime. I try to blend the two too, and I try to mix in a little bit of games every now and then because, games are awesome. It posted, Tim, we'll get to it during the stream. Oh, thanks, PC Geek. Sorry. As if I already didn't have reading problems with my glasses. Now I've noticed that light back there shines a reflection directly on where I'm reading. So anyways, I'll figure that out. I'm just learning. Learning. Realtek, yeah, see? There we go. Realtek. Just installed Proxmox onto an R710. All right, that was my first true server. On Ubuntu onto another R710. Not sure where I'm going from there. Yeah, so yeah, great question. So let's talk about that's a great question. So I run into this. I've run into this many times, right? You build up a foundation and you're not sure what to do with it. And so I've done this so many times where it's like, okay, what's my foundation? First, some of my foundational hardware, I'll call it like granite, if I'll build up from the layers of the crust of the earth. This is going to be a bad analogy. But you pick your hardware, right? You pick your hardware, you pick your servers, whatever else. And then you pick, the next layer up. I don't know what it is. I'm going to stop this analogy. But then you pick maybe your hypervisor, or maybe it's bare metal, whatever your operating system is going to be, right? And you chose Proxmox here. Same thing I do. Then you pick, your operating system. What guests are going to run on top of that hypervisor? For me, it's typically Ubuntu or Windows. Depends what it is. Not always, but most likely it's Ubuntu or Windows. And then you build up from there. What are the roles or responsibilities of those servers? Well, depends on you. What services do you want to run? And so when you start to build up your foundation, you got to think like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love the journey. I love building up, hardware and then putting software on top of that, building in redundancy and layering on like all of this cool tech. But you always have to keep your mind, you always have to think about the end product. What is the end product or the end goal? I'm thinking of this more like product management or software development. You're building this platform to eventually do something. And what is that something you want to do? Maybe it's host game servers. Maybe it's host web services. Maybe it's hosting a bot or hosting some code you wrote or a website or a blog. So remember to always keep that in mind, is that most of the time, unless you just love infrastructure and that's what you're going to do, most of the time you want some services running on there, right? You want to realize that value, and that value is providing some service to yourself, to your network, or to someone else. And so always keep that in mind. So it's really up to you. Why do you build your home lab, and why do you tinker? If it's absolutely 100% to learn, hey, you're done. You're never done. But go further, go deeper, try clustering, try different networking, try some HA, try, spinning up all kinds of different things. But if it is, at the end of the day, to provide a service, Plex, website, blog, whatever it is, try to get that running, because that's when you realize that value. That's when you're like, okay, I've set out on this mission to host or do something with the service, and now I've finally made it. So. And then it depends. There are so many ways still to get there. And so that's why I want to always have you keep in mind, what your end goal is. When is that value realized? And it's when you get that service going, because there's still steps in between there. If you were going with hosting custom code or hosting a website, you still have more options once you get to the operating system. Do you run it at the OS level? Do you containerize that and run it in Docker or containerization system, I should say? And then, do you need that HA? Do you need that spread across multiple nodes? And you might look at something like Kubernetes. So, Yeah, lots of great things to think about. These are the things I think about all the time. And there is no, I don't want to say there is no one way to do a lot of this stuff. You know, I mean, you could run your web service bare metal, totally fine. You could run it virtualized. You could run it in an operating system, virtualized, I guess I should say, in a virtualized guest. You know, and then you can containerize it inside of there. Or you can containerize it on bare metal, or run Kubernetes bare metal and spread it across everything. And that's part of the joy of all of this. That's why I love this, because there are so many ways. But just a reminder, always keep, you know, your end goal in mind. You know, what's your end game? It's maybe to provide some services, and so keep that in mind too. That'll help you progress and chip away little by little on what you're trying to get to, and you can work backwards from there. If that's your goal, to host a website, okay, then you work backwards. Okay, do I want it containerized? Do I want it to run bare metal, and then make choices that way? You can go that way too. Most of the time, I kind of have an idea of what my infrastructure looks like, but you know, it's that last, you know, the last mile, I'll say, that I kind of get hung up on sometime. And what's that last mile? It's when your service is, you know, comes online. Where's it going to come online? Is it going to come online in a container or in Kubernetes? And so those are things you'll just have to figure out and decide, you know, what's best for you and how you want to support that thing. But yeah, great question. I love thinking about that stuff. It's funny, every time I say Kubernetes now, I'm just like, oh, like my brother. Quick story, like my brother. He asked me the other day, what is Kubernetes? And I'm like, oh, it's Kubernetes, and it's, you know, I tried to explain it to him, but I know he's not in tech. And then my wife, she hears me say Kubernetes all the time. She has no idea what it is, but you know, she every time I say it now, I'm like, somebody listening who has no idea what Kubernetes is probably thinks I'm speaking like a foreign language. So, anyway, so I'm trying to keep my mentions of Kate's. I'll say Kate's instead, but then people would be like, who's Kate? To a minimum. Mirinal, hi Chat and Tim. I have problems at Proxmox to pass through an Adaptec 5805 to a TrueNAS VM. No drives are visible after startup, but when I do a hot swap a drive, every drive comes up. Do I have to blacklist the driver? Anyone have any hints or ideas? Mirinal, possibly. So when I I'm assuming, I'm making a big assumption that your CPU supports IOMMU and pass-through. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't see anything there. But I mean, I have a guide that's how do you virtualize Proxmox, right? And that walks through everything you'll need to do along with the settings. But most of the time, it's just following the same exact settings and how-to guide that you would for passing through any hardware. But it seems to me like if TrueNAS is recognizing anything at all, that hardware pass-through is indeed working. You could query that device too in TrueNAS, I'm sure, with a few commands to make sure it is. I don't know much about this Adaptec 5805. I'm hoping that it's in IT mode, or that it's passing through disks directly through to TrueNAS, because you know, and maybe you do or don't know that, you know, TrueNAS also runs on ZFS. And so you don't, you know, it has to have direct access to those disks. And that means either passing those disks through all the way from your host down individually, which can be kind of confusing and scary, or using something like you're talking about, Adaptec 5808. Hopefully that supports IT mode. I don't have it right here. But do I have to blacklist the driver? I don't think so. Maybe not. I'd have to look. Hopefully, yeah, Meryl, let me know. I don't know much about the device, but that's the general idea, is that, you know, should just work, quote unquote. And if it doesn't, that means something's up with either that device or for the drivers, or that device maybe just isn't supported on FreeBSD. That's another thing you have to keep in mind too, is that, you know, that device needs to be supported not only on Linux, not necessarily, if you're passing it through, it doesn't matter. But, you know, are there FreeBSD drivers for that thing, and do they work properly? So a good thing to Google would be, you know, TrueNAS, Adaptec 5805, and take virtualization, you know, kind of that layer out of it, just so you can isolate what the problem is. Because at the end of the day, that's all you're doing, is passing that device through to that guest. Hopefully, But after TrueNAS Scale, you might not have this problem because they're switching over to Linux. Well, TrueNAS Scale is on Linux. I shouldn't say switching to Linux because it's a new product. How about that? Reish, howdy y'all. How's it going? Yeah, sky's the limit. I totally agree. And there's so many ways to do it. Any blast, just in time to say hi from my just installed multi-boot. Nice. Yeah. So awesome. Glad you got it going. That I talked about multi-boot a little while ago. I still do it here. I'm holding out for a couple things. I'll always do it now that I have a drive dedicated to it. It's been picking up lately. A lot of people are doing it. So I'm glad in general that a lot of people are getting more and more interested in Linux because I think it's awesome. I've been doing it for a long time, you know. But I run every OS. Well, I shouldn't say every, but you know, Windows, Mac, Linux, you name it. I run them in some form or fashion. And I've been doing dual booting for a long time. I stopped for a while, but I'm back to it, and it's great. I just love how, it's just picking up steam. It keeps getting bigger and better, and more people are coming to it. So it's really cool. It's really cool. And so being able to dual boot is a great way to just dabble in it without fully committing to it. Not that, you know, fully committing to it is a bad thing, but sometimes you got to get things done in the other OS. Name your other OS. And so dual booting is super fun. Because you can just flip over and do it. Virtualization, I wish we could totally, if we had SRIOV and you could totally share your GPU across one GPU across multiple virtual machines. I think that's the dream. That's the dream for me. So that I wouldn't have to flip over and dual boot. I could start with Linux and then spin up my Windows machines to do my Windows stuff. And then, let them go back to sleep or whatever. But anyways, awesome. Glad you're watching me. So are you on Windows or Linux watching this? Because you said you just installed multi-boot, so curious. Techno, finally finishing up the arcade machine. Nice, dude. Got a kick with 2 joysticks and 10 buttons for each player. A Raspberry Pi case with cooling. Found a RetroPie image with 2,282 arcade ROMs on it. And got the coin acceptor act in the right shift, aka coin input name. Nice. I like it, man. I like where this is going. So all I have to do is when I come over and play games at your house is bring a USB keyboard, plug it in, and hit shift like 1,000 times to insert coins. No, I totally know exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about. I know that like on MAME emulators, they have a key binding for MAME for credits or coins, and I remember that because a buddy of mine built an arcade a long time ago on a PC platform, not even Raspberry Pi. That wasn't even out anywhere, even thought about, I assume back then. But that's super awesome, man. I would love to see pictures and progress. That would be so awesome. Mafney, hi, how are you? Hey, how's it going? Oh man, I'm sorry, I apologize. I missed some follows. Manny Fresh, hey, thanks for follow, appreciate it. Basic Panther, thanks for follow, appreciate it. Welcome. Sorry, that was a little while ago. Things are a little off today for me. Mafney, yeah, dude, thank you. How's it going? D-Boz, Wiki Manuel, you're welcome and still like to hear what Techno Tim has to say. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Homelab new, weather is great here in the UK. No clouds and plenty of pubs open. I saw your post in Discord with just the brew and saying pubs are open. I was like, oh, that's nice. I think things are going to start heading that way here too. So hopefully things are good in the UK. No clouds. That means it's a really good day there because it's always cloudy there. I felt like it was like that here the last 2 weeks. So yeah. Tagano, weather here, okay. Is, I assume. Maybe hit enter too soon. Tweak MDS. Howdy. First time here. Hey, thank you. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. How are you? TKE, TK. No, Tiki. I'm going with Tiki Saw 1. Tiki Saw 1. Hi, Tim. Love your channel. I'm on mobile. Just listening for now. I have Ubuntu, Raspberry Pi 4, and Kubernetes questions for later. Yeah, that sounds fun. I talk a lot about that too. A lot of people have questions about Kubernetes on Raspberry Pi. I've done it. I'm doing it. I kind of understand it. But it's super fun stuff. Yeah, let me know. Hit me with your questions. Chicano, weather here in Arizona has been pretty nice. Not hot or warm, just really nice weather and a bit of wind. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Yeah, compared to the 119 or whatever you had, I think, a week or two ago, that does not sound good. Not my favorite weather, that hot and dry to where it just feels like the moisture is just being taken away from your eyes and whole entire body. Oh, that just beats you down. Skrillaflex, Tim, what was the Retrowave song in your intro? Ooh, don't know the exact song. It was probably Strike This or Till the End or Wasted Keybinds. So it's all by Harris Heller. Harris Heller has this thing called Streambeats. I think you can check it out, streambeats.com. It has all his music. It's all for free for creators. I use it in all my stuff. So if you ever, all my videos, all my whatever, social media, I use it where I can because I can trust that I'm not going to get a DMCA strike. But yeah, it's I also have then a playlist where I've collected the best of those and put it together. So anyways, the music is by Harris Heller. Just search his name. If you have no idea who he is, just search him and you'll see Streambeats. And they're all there. Lots of them. And it's on every platform. So yeah, for sure. If you want to know the specific song, ping me in Discord. I can figure it out. I'll give you the top 3 or 4 names of the ones that come in my intro. I keep building on the intro. Every time I find good songs, it goes to this playlist and those bubble to the top. And then all of a sudden that's in my intro. So my intro changes over time. Tweak, MDS, just added for a second Proxmox box for Kubernetes stuff. Nice. Yeah. All right. Multi-server Proxmox to get Kubernetes stuff. Do you have an opinion on K3S versus MicroK8s for Homelab? Yeah, I do. I do, but it's probably biased because I've only done one. So mine is K3S. Mine is K3S for a lot of reasons, and these reasons might be the same on MicroK8s. And to be 100% honest, I couldn't tell you the difference. But I think the idea and the principle is the same: is that you don't want full-on Kubernetes for home or for self-hosting. Why is that? It's because full-on Kubernetes has a bunch of code and a bunch of processes that are specific to cloud providers. So Kubernetes codebase has code on how to interact with Azure load balancer, a Google Cloud load balancer, or an Amazon Web Services load balancer, or Amazon Kubernetes engine. And so I think most then a lot of distributions that claim to be light and smaller have removed that code. And I won't speak for them all. I'm really just speaking for K3S, but I assume this is pretty much the same. And so K3S is a lot lighter weight. I mean, it doesn't have some features that Kubernetes has, but it also doesn't have, I don't want to say a lot of the bloat because, you know, it's not super lightweight in general if you think of what Kubernetes is trying to do. But it has removed a ton of those processes and a ton of that code that's specific for cloud providers that someone not in a cloud wouldn't need. So yeah, I mean, my opinion is pretty biased only because, you know, it's the only, I've done smaller versions of Kubernetes before. I've never tried MicroK8s. I get reminded all the time. Every time I log into a Ubuntu server, you see, hey, we have MicroK8s, self-healing. I could almost verbatim repeat exactly what their advertisement says every time I SSH into an Ubuntu server. Just because it's always there, which is pretty impressive for Ubuntu to do that, or they must be really pushing it too. But I enjoy K3S. There's a huge community around it. It's pretty lightweight. It's revving really fast. They stay pretty, you know, I don't want to say lockstep, but they keep up with mainline Kubernetes as far as features and everything like that. And it's part of, you know, it's part of a larger ecosystem too of just Kubernetes. But it's also then most of, you know, Rancher's products are part of that ecosystem too. And so, you know, Rancher as an org, you know, created K3S. It's now part of the CNFC Cloud Native Foundation. I forget what the acronym is. But it's part of that now, and it's a community, you know, project. But that being said, I do use a lot of Rancher products as well. And so I know that, you know, if most of the time, it's happened before, but for most of the time, if I'm going to use, you know, Rancher, or I'm going to use Longhorn, or I'm going to use, you know, monitoring reporting that's built on top of Rancher, I know for the most part, it's going to work on K3S because it's part of the same family of products. But that being said, you don't even need Rancher. You don't need Rancher to run K3S. So anyways, that's the long of it. But in general, I should try MicroK8 someday. It's just, you know, time. It's all about time. I should compare them sometime. Because I'm sure Canonical or Ubuntu is doing a great job on MicroK8s. Just, you know, just K3S just seems good. Good for me. And it's super lightweight. I'm sure MicroK8s is too. It's in the name. PC Geek Stream Beats. Yeah, thank you. Well, technically it's still an RV. All right. I don't know the differences between the two. I'll go, thank you. So RV. recreational vehicle. That could be anything, right? Budney. Hello, Techno Tim and chat. How's it going, Budney? Odd West. Been migrating from a single node Docker version of, on Rancher to HA Key3S install. Nice. Thank you for all the guides you provide, Techno Tim. Hey, no problem at all. That's a big one. I did that myself. There's no. I wish there were an easier way to go from a single node non-HA Rancher installed to go to an HA Rancher installed. I assume you're doing Rancher too because you mentioned the Docker version on Rancher. There's no easy way. I mean, the easiest way that I found to do that is to really possibly export your YAML and then use kube control to import that YAML. Or you might be able to do it with Rancher too. I can't remember off the top of my head. But that's not always cleaned because labels and dates and stuff like that. So I wish there were a better way. But I would, if you're making that change, I would recommend trying to deploy it through through kube controller, through some manifests. Because if you have your deployment files, you can do this again anywhere, and it's super fun. You won't get all of the labels and annotations that you get from Rancher. But for the most part, that's after I went through that migration, I'm like, never again. But my installation is totally different from yours, where I have a ton of services that need to run. Maybe it's different, maybe it's not. But I told myself, like, okay, if I'm doing this migration again, I'm going to make sure that I have manifest to be able to deploy all my services with or without Rancher, and it's been fantastic so far. It's been because I can deploy them and delete them right from a terminal, which is pretty cool. But Odd West, yeah, good luck to you, man. It's super fun. It's super fun once you get it going. Especially, yeah, if you're going full on HA, it's super fun. Tigano, any ideas why the time on Windows keeps being delayed until I manually sync it using dual boot? Yeah, I do. I know exactly why. Yeah, so Tigano, I know this answer because I run into this. So if you dual boot Windows and Linux, I think Windows reads time from, I don't remember which one it is, but Windows will read time from something and Linux reads it from something else. There's a registry key. What I do is I set a registry key on Windows to tell it to read universal time. Because otherwise, every time you flip-flop, your time's going to be off. And that's what I've learned. I have the registry key somewhere. But if you just Google, like, I don't know, time zone, dual booting, Linux, Windows, time zone, there's a registry key you can set in Windows. I usually do it on the Windows side to tell Windows to use universal time. And then make sure the clock's right, and then they'll both be right, because I think that's what Linux uses, at least Ubuntu. A drift is a little bit different. So if you're seeing, an hour or 2 or 3 or 4 difference, like almost exactly by the hour, that's it. If you're seeing a drift by a couple minutes, yeah, that one's tough to track down. But I think that's it, because I've had to do this on every dual boot. Even when I triple booted my Hackintosh, I had to get them all right. Otherwise, like, everything would be off on Windows when I come back. Everything else was fine. It was just Windows, and I think it's just telling to use universal time and then setting the Windows clock after you set universal time and a reboot, and then everyone should be happy. Every OS you have running. Mathny, I was watching the fake Elon Musk accounts get suspended after one of them then taking screenshots of Elon Musk's facial expression. I've only gotten some shots. Yeah. Oh, man, yeah, bots in general, yeah, it's crazy. Sigor, how's it going? How are you? PC Geek, the guy who had it before me paid to add Wi-Fi device antenna, so ready to connect to a public Wi-Fi where available. Also has an HD TV antenna already. Bonus, there's an Ethernet jack in the side that connects to the Wi-Fi router device. I guess you can call it. Nice. Yeah, this is what we were talking about. So that's awesome. You don't have to do any of that. You could have your whole entire RV be a client to some public network, and then you have a router or whatever you want on the inside, or the jack, or put a router in front of that to then serve out internet to the inside of your RV, or rebroadcast your own public network. But put that firewall in front so that you don't have to worry about broadcast packets and all that stuff too. Yeah, awesome, man, dude, awesome, totally awesome. Sounds super fun. Out West, been struggling to get traffic to dashboard after install. Yeah, I hear you. Any tips on how you would go about debugging it? I believe it's getting an IP from MetaLB. Let me grab a drink real quick. Yeah, that's a tough one. you know, I think this has come up a few times in Discord. I used to run it and then I took it off. Reasons being is because it's a long story, but that where I run traffic to is kind of my public network, public-ish network, to where I didn't want to expose it. And so I'm not making excuses of why it shouldn't work. But that's why I choose not to expose it there is, you know, I could set up a ton of rules and filter it, but I was just like, I won't even expose that. Anyways, long story short, you know, the best that I have is that guide. I can give it a whirl later on today or tomorrow to see if it works again. How do you debug it? There might be a debug flag because I know that in traffic for Docker, there's a debug flag where you say debug equals true. And so that's going to turn on some more debug logging. And so how do you debug that? Well, once traffic spins up, so what I would do is look at the logs for that container that's running traffic when you spin it up and when you create, when you spin it up with the dashboard on. Look at those logs. Try to hit your dashboard endpoint, whether that be IP or DNS, it's probably a DNS name, and see if it generates any logs. But also look in the logs too in that container to see if there's any errors when it starts up. They're super hard to track down because the dashboard is a little bit different from everything else you do because you configure the dashboard within the traffic config rather than doing a lot of it in routes elsewhere, because it's like spinning up another endpoint within itself to be able to say, hey, you know, here's this endpoint within traffic to get to your dashboard. But see if there's a debug flag. I can look later on too, ping me in Discord, turn it on, look at the logs and see if there's anything in the logs that are obvious. That's probably the route I would go. I know that's not helpful, but those container logs will probably, hopefully, give something away. But let me know. Tweak MDS. Tim, can you give some guidance on setting up read-write many Kubernetes storage on a few simple K3S nodes? Yeah. Yes. So on a persistent volume claim, I think you can have multiple permissions. So you can have read-write once, which is only going to allow one container, the first container, to be able to read. Or you have read, I don't know, you have three. Just put it that. And so what it boils down to is that you can have multiple containers reading and writing. I think multiple containers reading or one container reading. And so Kubernetes storage and a few simple K3S nodes. Yeah. So I use this. Where do I use this? I'll give you an example of where I use it. So I have a workload that goes and grabs data and writes it to a persistent volume. And then I have a workload that reads the data and can write to there as well from another container to that same persistent volume claim. And so when I set those up, I just say read write many. And that in general should work. I am using, so I do have two persistent volume or storage classes, I guess I should say. I use both Longhorn and I use the NFS client provisioner. Both of those seem to work. And where you can run into problems is that sometimes containers don't have the right permission set, which is very painful. I won't go into detail into that because that sounds very container specific, but sometimes if you are running into that, it's specific to that container because they didn't write or do the correct permissions for that container. And so sometimes you'll have to look at a init container to then write those permissions or adjust those permissions before the other container starts. I said I wasn't going to go in detail, but I think it's worth mentioning. So if you're running into that to where a container that spins up doesn't have access to read or write or do anything to some volume that's mounted, hey, Mafney, dude, thanks. Gifted tier 1 sub to Swift Cool Guy. Hey, thank you so much. Dude, appreciate it, Mafney. Dude, appreciate it. 2 gifted subs. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Don't know why my lights aren't flashing. I don't know. I apologize. I'll check that out later. It never ends. But going back to what I was saying. So if you are running into a problem where a container doesn't have the correct permissions to the persistent volume that it's trying to read or write to, has to do with that container, you'll have to look into an init container to actually do that for you. An init container is basically like a prerequisite for a container spinning up. So if you have a container spinning up and it has a init container, that init container is going to go first. It's going to do some commands, and then your main container will spin up when that's done. And so the pattern that I've seen sometimes is that people will spin up an init container, usually BusyBox, to write permissions to some file or folder or path, shut down, and then the other container comes up. That's a pattern that I've seen with WordPress and other ones who may or may not have done permissions properly. Or it has something to do with, NFS4 sometimes with the way that they do permissions differently, I guess I should say. But if that's not your problem, I went with the most extreme way first. So if that's not your problem, then it should be just as simple as creating a persistent volume claim, specifying read write many, and then each container that mounts that persistent volume claim or mounts that volume should have read write to that container. And so my example again was I have one process that grabs and processes data and writes to a volume, and then I have another volume or another container that mounts that volume that mainly reads to it but can also write to it. And so that's how you solve that problem. Hopefully that helps. And if your question is more generic than this, and it's, hey, I have, one container spread across 3 nodes and they're using bind mount, don't use bind mount, look into something like NFS Client Provisioner or Longhorn to be able to use, a persistent volume or a PVC across all those containers. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Dude, Anyblast, dude, thank you so much. Has resub Prime Prime for 4 months, 2 months straight. Dude, thank you so much. Hey, lights are magically working now. Who knows when they're gonna work? I need to look into that. I need to look into it. It's kind of tricky though. It's a tricky problem to figure out. I honestly wish they just had an IP address rather than me writing code to send IR commands to these lights. But what can you do? It was fun to build. Satan's link. Yeah. Hey, thanks for all. Appreciate it. I don't even know what that says. Satan's linker nipple, I think is what it says. Thanks for follow. Appreciate it. How are you? It's hard to read from here. So yeah, tweak MDS. I probably went way too much into detail, but I usually do. So hopefully that helps because I'm trying to cover everything you could possibly ask in one question without having, full, I guess the full background. Huntava, hi Tim, left a comment in your most recent YouTube video. Do you have pfSense working with your Pi-hole? When I had it running, I did. So I'm not running pfSense as my main, I guess, firewall or router or everything, my edge anymore. I'm using UDM Pro, and same kind of idea is that I let Pi-hole handle DNS for me. I assume that's very simple. I'd have to look at pfSense again to do that. I mean, I think the way I solve it now is just handing out my DNS IPs to all my clients. So my DHCP scopes have a DNS value that it sends out with each DHCP request. And so those clients then get the correct DNS entries. So I would assume it would kind of work the same on pfSense. I'll check your comment though. It's a busy day when I release a video on Saturday and stream. But I'll check it out. But the idea should be the same. It should be the same, I guess, with any, DHCP scope that you have is that you have, per scope, you have DNS, DNS servers. And when a client requests that DHCP address, it also gets your DNS servers. I mean, that's one way to set it up, as well as the default gateway and whatever else, what other, any other DHCP options that are specified. I think that's how I used to do it. I'd have to check though. But I think back when I was running pfSense, I didn't run Pi-hole. So I've had a ton of iterations of what my edge router, my firewall is, and pfSense was one of those. But I think when I was running pfSense, I wasn't running Pi-hole. So lots of iterations. But let me know. It should work the same, I believe. Wick Emmanuel, that was the only question for you now. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, no problem. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, any questions in general? Yeah, let me know. I like talking about tech. I get to do it now once a week. At least the tech that I love all tech, but I go deep on this tech. And so I really appreciate you asking and talking in general, because yeah, like I said, this is my once a week to talk about it, other than like videos I record, but that's not a discussion. That's just talking at people, or potentially talking at people. Mathny, short stream. Sure. Yeah, I know. No, now I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, oh, yeah, I've said this before. On West, speaking of ZFS, I passed my SSD array to my Proxmox VM and let that handle ZFS RAID, and then shared it back to Proxmox with iSCSI for VM storage. Any thoughts on this setup? Let me think about that. You pass an SSD array to your Proxmox VM. Wait, you have to a guest on Proxmox, and let that handle the ZFS RAID, and then shared it back to Proxmox with iSCSI for VM storage. Any thoughts on this setup? No, it sounds a little Inception, but you know, it sounds Inception, but I kind of do the same. I do the same. And so sounds very similar to my work. So I have this big storage pool, right? I have this big storage pool that I pass through to my, well, I have this big storage pool that's in a disk shelf, right? And then that's connected to a cable to my HBA controller. That whole controller is passed through to a virtual guest on Proxmox, to TrueNAS. And then on TrueNAS, it handles all of my storage needs. So it handles object storage with, S3 object storage with Minio, NFS, so file level storage, and then block storage with iSCSI, exactly what you're talking about. I don't do the iSCSI then back to the host, Proxmox, but I do the NFS back to the host, which is Proxmox, because that's where my backups for my virtual machines go. It's kind of roundabout, but then so I'm doing something very similar. It's worked out okay for me. iSCSI, I haven't done that loop that I know of. No, I haven't. No, because my iSCSI is just dedicated to a few machines that are 100% virtual. But I have kind of a leaky abstraction, I guess is what you would call it, in software development, where I internally go out and share things externally that then external things can also access, at least with the Proxmox host. So no, I mean, no concerns. I do the same thing, and we've all done stuff that just doesn't feel right, but it works, and I'm plenty guilty of that. And most of that has to do with I just don't have the money or time to scale out like I could. If this were a true enterprise in my home. So a lot of times when things feel like that, I get it. Like, would you do this? And if this was your company and, it was a production environment, probably not. But would you do it at home because that's what you have? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now I think there needs to be, does it violate any kind of security or anything like that? I don't know. But for the most part, there are a handful of things that I do, and it's only because, like most of us in Home Labs, we're just trying to do the best with what we have, right? And if we don't have that thing, we'll engineer a way around it. And so I do that a lot, and that's one good example. But yeah, no, I'm no qualms, lots of thoughts on that setup. So yeah, thanks for sharing, appreciate it. Claw order draw. Hey, Techno Tim, I'll be getting my home lab soon. Getting a hand-me-down. Nice. Yeah, hand-me-downs are great because it means someone else figured out all the cool stuff and figured out all of the awesome stuff, and they're just going to give it to you. And you're just like, awesome. They've figured out all this stuff. They know how it should work. They probably have, the right CPU, the right drives, the right RAM, and they've figured out all the hard stuff. No, I love it. Hand-me-down home labs are fantastic. Same with hand-me-down PCs or anything in general that's customizable because the person before it, took the time to customize it for the most part. Sunset Golfer, hey, thank you. Prime sub, thank you so much. Appreciate it. How are you? Hey, Sunset Golfer, I like it. Anthony, good luck. Yeah, for sure. Probably LVM for JBOD. Oh, that's going back to that. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, PC Geek. Quinn, how's it going, man? He's feeding into this AMA. I like it. Gummy vitamins or Flintstones? Ooh, that one's tough. Ooh, that one's really tough because as a kid, like I love Flintstone vitamins. It was like candy to me. Like my mouth is watering right now thinking of them. Sorry. Or gummy. I would have to go with, I'll go with Flintstones, chewables, only fruity chewy, only because just the nostalgia. Like I like gummy vitamins, but there are some really good ones. It's a great question. That's tough. I mean, the hard ones get stuck in your teeth. The gummy ones don't, kind of really, I don't know. That's a great question. I'm going to go with Flintstone only because, PC Geek Flintstone, only because there's so much nostalgia for me for eating those things. It was just like, I don't know. Parents had them, and then, you could eat a handful of them as if they were candy. I like it though. It probably, like I said, a lot of nostalgia there. So I go with that. Claw Overdraw, apologize. The person who was giving me had it for 1 year, had to move, so it got put in a box, fairly new, so just paying shipping. Awesome, even better. So a newer Homelab person has to move, downsizing or whatever, and they're totally giving it to you. Yeah, that's awesome. Homelab new, thanks Tim. Hey, no problem, man. Claw Overdraw, 2U rack plus, nice. Nice. Or 22. I was like 2U. I could fit, 2 1Us in there. I figured it was something. It was a typo. 22. Nice. That's a perfect size. I have 18, so 22 would give me 4 more. But I agree. Those are fantastic size. So I'm pretty tall. So I think my 18U comes up to about my hip. And then I assume 4 more U would be right about here. Bottom of my rib cage. I don't know. You guys don't know how tall I am, but anyways, So I think that's a great size. It does kind of stink because I have to like squat down to do everything, but at the same time, it's not going to the ceiling because I don't have high ceilings in my basement. But fantastic, especially for free. Like you cannot beat that. Wisher Daking. I'm playing with 2 HP ProDesk 600 mini PCs with Intel. With 1X Intel NUC 10 consumer grade hardware, but I need to keep it energy efficient. Electric is expensive in Germany. Yeah, I totally agree. Hey, TK Saw one. Dude, thanks for the sub. Appreciate it. I know I say dude a lot, so I apologize. Ilude brought it up, but I realized too when he called it, I'm like, man, if he's saying I say it a lot, then I do. And it's just something growing up. It was always dude or man, and it's sometimes you mix them up and you're like, dude, man, dude, really, dude, man. Anyways, but yeah, thanks for the sub. Tiki Sal one. Thank you so much, appreciate it. Wisher Daking. So yeah, I totally agree. I struggle with this a lot. So do I scale up and use a lot of electricity, or is there a way to scale out or up? I would say out and use a lot less electricity. I mean, I struggle with this all the time, and for me, it's right in front of my face for the most part. If I go in the basement, my UPS right there says how many watts I'm using. And there's a number that I'm like, I want to be under. And then once I get under there, I'm like, okay, how can I get lower than that? So I struggle a lot. I mean, electricity isn't that expensive here. But at the same time, I need to find a way to generate some or to offset that cost with solar or something else. Just because, I hear you. This is one I struggle with. It hits home with me every time I go in the basement. So I totally agree. And so, yeah, if you're using mini PCs as your home lab, go for it. If it works, heck yeah. I could see myself, migrating to something like that someday. If a couple of my workloads didn't demand a lot of processing, I'd be in the same boat. Claw Overdrive, Power Edge 710, 18 gigs of RAM, dual 56, plus more, 128 gigs of memory. Can't pass it up for just paying shipping. Heck no, you can't. That's almost exactly like my machine. It's almost exactly like my 710. I think I had 192, but who cares? 128 is plenty. Yeah, awesome. Well, congratulations. You got plenty of support here in this channel and in Discord for sure. Bought in late 2017. It's a good start for sure. Yeah, not bad for just paying shipping. Yeah, especially if shipping's like $50, even $100. Look at how much they go for on eBay. It just depends. Anywhere from $400, $500, $600, $700. So yeah, if you're paying less than that, you have a good deal. If you're paying half that or a quarter of that, you have a steal. So yeah, awesome. Well, tell your friend we said thank you, because man, it's always good to know that hardware you have gets good use after you use it. I mean, that's how I feel when I give stuff away or sell it, I'm just like, please, give it a good home, take, feed, I give them the care and feeding, and they're probably like, man, it's just hardware, or it's just a computer, Yeah, I check up on my brothers too, all the ones I've handed down to them, just like, how's it doing? Hard drive's okay? It's just like I'm checking in on them. But so awesome to kind of being ultra limited now due to RAM 16 gigs. It's max. I was gonna upgrade my PC, but looking at the dot market right now, it isn't ideal. Yeah, I 100% agree. Now is not the time to upgrade anything. I mean, I think SSDs are about all you can get right now that are decently priced. If you're looking at speccing out a new machine or a PC especially, it's tough. It's tough. DDR4 is up. Video cards are non-existent. CPUs are non-existent. It's tough. So I'm just holding out. I upgraded my video card. Luckily, I snagged my 3090. I wanted to do a full build of a new machine, a new workstation that could handle video editing, coding, DevOps, everything that I do. But I'm just gonna wait. I'm in a holding pattern. But fortunately, the video card that I got me like it's going a long way with my video production stuff for sure. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. German. Sorry. Mathny. So happy I didn't march last year. It didn't march last year. Maybe I'm missing something. So happy I didn't. I didn't march last year. Oh, upgrade. Sorry. Here we go. The glare is right there. I promise. That's exactly where the glare is from that light I have on. Claw Overdraw. Want to host my own data, Nextcloud, VM, Plex, VMs, plus more. Yeah, it sounds exactly like what I was doing with my 710 for sure. FreeNAS, yeah, TrueNAS, yeah, TrueNAS for sure. Yeah, that's always a great one I think personally it's a great one to virtualize. Personally, I do it because I have a disk shelf. If I didn't have a disk shelf and it was a dedicated machine, then I would do it that way. Otherwise, it's super hard to get that many drives into one machine, especially like a 710. You got 6 bays there in a 710 or 720 or 730. I think they all have 6 bays. Maybe there's some with more, but that's all dedicated to, for me at least, it was to VM. So yeah, it's super. Yeah, exciting times figuring it all out. Do a little planning, but also do a lot of experimenting and just break stuff. That's, it's not always fun, especially if you put weeks into it, but break stuff early on. Try new stuff. It's the only way you're going to know, what you'll be able to support. PC Geek, my wife's eyes glaze over when I really get talking tech, but for the most part, she understands it. My wife does. As soon as I bring in any technical term or especially product names, because that happens with a lot of people. If you say Kubernetes or something in front of someone who doesn't know what Kubernetes is, they're like, "What are you even talking about? Is that a word?" I remember that's how I felt when I said it. I was like, "Who?" But yeah, totally. But yeah, my brothers, they're starting to ask me what it is too, because they're like, "You sure do talk about it a lot," and I don't mean to it. Just kind of happens. My wife is in the room and smiled when you said Kubernetes. My 2-year-old son also likes the words, but both have no clue what it is. Yeah, it's one of those words that it just kind of sounds fun. It's like Kuber and Netties and, cooties and has just a lot of, I guess syllables in it, fun syllables to say. And once you get it, then you can just keep saying it. Hi, Tim. Marco, how's it going? How are you? I'm going with Mark. Sorry, let me grab a drink. Seabro Walsey, when programming in a driver, you can't really just trust virtualization. When programming in driverland, you can't just trust virtualization. Yeah, totally. Alexa, Techno Tim, do you run Bitcoin wallet VM? Just wondering. I don't. It's funny you ask that because my brother's kind of been getting into it, and he'll send me his hash rates. He's trying all different kinds of stuff. Like I'm just like, whoa, when did you start learning about this and doing this? It's so awesome that he's doing it. And I think I've learned more from him about mining than I've known over the last, 4 or 5 years of mining. It's just because, he's texting me all the time. Here's my hash rate. Here's what's going on. Here's how much I can make per day. So I gave it a spin. I'm not going to lie. And it was actually 2 days ago on my video card. I was like, what's my hash rate for this 3090? You know, and it was more to appease him because he was like, you have that 3090 there just doing nothing most of the day, you know. And so I spun it up and I kind of started to understand it, looked at my hash rate. I was like, whoa, this is pretty crazy. I heard some fans kick on my 3090 that I've never heard before in my entire life. My UPS was beeping. I mean, all the same things when I was doing some of the machine learning stuff that I was doing a couple of months ago, except for extra fans. I'm like, whoa, like I did not hear these fans kick on when I was doing machine learning stuff, but I do hear them when I'm doing mining stuff. So, but I don't. No, I don't run one. I ran it in demo mode, so I basically donated, you know, some free compute cycles to the service that I was testing out just to you know, see what I would get and compare against his. But I don't. I nothing against it. I just, you know, I'm trying to keep my electrical footprint down. And like I said, when I spun that up, I think my video card alone was drawing almost 300 watts of power. Like his, you know, video card. That's by itself. Which is, you know, my whole entire PC was probably drawing 600-700 then at the time, which is why my UPS alarm started going off, because I think it's only rated for 750 or something. And, you know, and so nothing against it. I think it's super awesome, super interesting. I just, you know, I don't know enough about it, and I started learning about the actual process. I understand cryptocurrency and how it works. But the actual process to run it on my own, I just started learning this week. So, you know, before that, I was always just kind of like, yep, I totally get it. I understand what it's trying to do. I understand why it's awesome. I understand why it's so hot right now. But I never wanted to or never pursued running it on my own machine until 2 days ago when my brother was asking me about it. So no, nothing serious. Just testing the waters for sure. Getty Gaming, hey, how's it going? Takano, the amount of static due to a lack of humidity is getting to me. Every time I touch a metal surface, I get shocked. Funny. We have that same problem here too. In Minnesota, we have the problem during winter. I mean, and I still have it today. I think just yesterday when I was going to touch my camera, I was like hesitating. I'm like, well, is it going to shock me or not? But we have enough humidity in the air to where we don't. I get that same thing all the time. Everything I touch in my room for, you know, 6-7 months, same way, because it's so dry here in the wintertime. And plus on top of that, we have boilers and stuff like that. And yeah, it gets real dry here too. So I hear you. Realtek, I think my goal is to set up VIOS on my router and firewall, and then learn how to do VLANs to keep family devices, services, and lab learning separate. 2 game servers, mail, and website. Okay, so public services. I keep having a hard time with the logic behind virtualizing all separate devices. This would be easy, but like my brain breaks once I start VMs. No, just treat your VMs just like physical machines. So this is, wait until you get into containerization and possibly Kubernetes. That'll really blow your mind. But thinking about virtual machines, treat them like physical machines. That's in general, that's how I treat it. Like every virtual machine that I have in my head, it's a full-blown operating system. It's a full-blown server. You know, it needs the same security patching and security policies that you would apply to a physical machine, except for it's just virtualized. You know, and the thing though, I think it was kind of mentioned earlier, is to keep in mind too, is that then that hardware is then virtualized to that virtual machine. So, but it's nothing to even really worry about, or just be aware that it is, because you don't need to install drivers and do most of the things you need to do for physical machines or bare metal machines, is that they have, you know, the hardware abstracted from them and virtualized as just a generic type of device. And most of the time you're going to have drivers that come with the OS and maybe some guest editions or something like that, you know, help you with monitoring or logging or better performant controllers and stuff like that. So if you're doing it on Proxmox, just create a virtual machine, treat it just like a physical machine, but just, you know, make sure you install the QEMU guest agent, which helps you with a few additional hardware pieces for Proxmox, for some reporting, for some ballooning, for memory and stuff like that. Hey, Mary Married geek guy. Hey, me too. Thanks for the sub. Appreciate it. How are you doing today? Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Any blast. Techno Tim, watching from Garuda, trying to figure it out now. Might switch to Kubuntu later just to escape the temptation to game. Yeah, nice. Watch from Linux too. All right. Might switch to Kubuntu later. I used to do a lot of Kubuntu back in the day because I was like, I was familiar with Ubuntu. I liked Kubuntu because it uses KDE, and I was like, oh, this is, it felt more modern. This is around the Vista time, and I was like, yeah, it feels, kind of feels more modern. Has a, it's really glassy and shiny. But yeah, I haven't checked out Kubuntu lately. I've tried many flavors of Ubuntu. Kubuntu was one that I actually used for a long time because I liked KDE at the time. Yeah, for sure. Tweak MDS, Tim, in the future. Thanks for your elaborate answer on Kate's versus micro Kate's. Oh, no problem. I've been running K3S in a tiny Alpine VMs for about a year now. Nice. But sometimes I feel like there might be greener grass and some things that work fishy in K3S, but Alpine plus K3S is the smallest overhead I found so far. Nice. So yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, maybe one day I'll switch to Alpine over Ubuntu. Yeah, I'm sure Ubuntu has a ton of baggage. I get it. Because they're trying to be a general purpose server, and there might be a lighter server that I could use, something like Alpine. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I'm trying to think, there are a couple things that I install, because mine are virtualized, at least I should say. So yeah, if I could get the QEMU guest agent on Alpine, and there are a few additional things I need, like NFS, there are a few additional agents. I'm sure I could figure it out. But yeah, that sounds awesome because Alpine's tiny. Alpine is like a 20 megabyte operating system. It's tiny. I use that for all my Docker containers, and it's great. That's usually my base image for all my Docker containers if I ever build one, and it is for a lot of people too, because it's it's super lightweight. It's tiny. Has a tiny the less things you have in an operating system in general, the less you have of things that could possibly go wrong or be vulnerabilities in the future. So yeah, awesome. I should give that a spin sometime. Can I get Alpine plus K3S going? I'm sure there are guides out there. Oh, you got the wheels turning now. But I've been that being said, I've been super happy with just Ubuntu and K3S. I could go lighter. Yeah, I like this Alpine route. I could go lighter, but in general, I've been super happy. It's run fine. It's been performant. At idle with nothing running, just Ubuntu in general. It's pretty lightweight. But then again, like you say, or like I just said earlier, just less running, less vector too for attacks. If you're running something like Alpine, I like it. Miral. I had the issue in my office, Quiet Psychoterra. You don't want to touch anything. Yeah, I have it too. And I know my PC case is another one that I'm like, ooh, I just don't want to touch it. I don't want to touch it. But I think last night was the first time in a long time that I went to touch it and it didn't shock me. I'm like, whew, I think we're past this. So yeah, we have the same thing where you get in the summer and you probably have it all year round. We definitely get it in the winter for sure. Penguin Airlines, how's it going? How you doing? Hello, fellows. How you doing, man? It's always DNS. It is, isn't it? Sunset Golfer, your Pi-hole needs the latest version, right? Oh, wait, did I miss something? Your Pi-hole needs the latest version. Is not on Docker. Sad. My Pi-hole needs the latest version. Let me know. Let me know what you're talking about. If that was a follow-up. Maybe I'm missing something. But in general, if you're talking about to be able to do local DNS stuff, yeah, I think it needs to be 5 something or something. I can't remember when they added it. I think 5.2 possibly. I'm just guessing, or maybe 5.1. But yeah, you need to update it for sure. And it's not on Docker. Sad face. Yeah, I Sunset Golfer. Looks like a newer name. I know you subbed earlier, but I didn't see this in the past. I haven't seen your name in the past, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I had this evolution of Docker, Kubernetes, bare metal, Raspberry Pi, and it's kind of bounced all around. And so hints in the video today is that, I do, or spoiler, I do use it for my local DNS. And when I was spinning up a new Kubernetes cluster, I couldn't have my DNS inside of Kubernetes that I was spinning up. So I had to bring it out. And so temporarily it's in a virtual machine. I don't know where it's going to live yet. It'll probably end up being containerized again, but I have a couple more evolutions coming. So I'm keeping it stable. It'll move somewhere else. All my stuff moves around. But yeah, for now, absolutely. Virtualized. It'll go back to Docker soon, most likely. Probably not in Kubernetes, though, unless I spin up yet another Kubernetes cluster that's only 100% dedicated to my own personal stuff, which could be coming too. Tiki saw one. All right, back to my desktop. My question is, what's the best way to make Ubuntu bootable from a USB SSD rather than a micro SD card? Also, is it advised to use Kubernetes as a single node for mobile Plex server that can host RASP app to broadcast its own network? So two things there. What is the best way to make Ubuntu bootable from a USB 3.0 SSD rather than a micro SD card? I'd have to look. I mean, you can get Ubuntu to boot on external USB for sure. I mean, that should be a thing. I think I've done it before, even from a USB stick. I'd have to look, but you know, I should be able to Google it, and if not, ping me in Discord. We can find something that works. But it should. But rather than the micro SD card, I assume then you're asking about a Raspberry Pi. So many questions here. Because when you say micro SD, it makes me think, okay, you're thinking of a Ubuntu server running on a Raspberry Pi. But either way, definitely possible. Definitely possible either way. So if you're doing an x86 or ARM processors, it's going to be very similar. But ping me in Discord. We'll figure it out. And then your second question, T-Kisaw1. Also, is it advised to use Kubernetes as a single node for a mobile Plex server that can also host RASP app to broadcast its own network? I don't know what RASP app is. I assume it's AP. I'm just guessing. Raspbian AP, Raspberry Pi AP. So is it advised to use Kubernetes as a single node for a mobile Plex server that can also maybe? That sounds super interesting. So I think the idea then you're saying is, hey, I have this Raspberry Pi. It's going to broadcast a network that people can join. And then is it okay to run Plex on there too? So I see where you're going. So you'll basically have like a mobile hotspot where anyone with a device can connect and watch videos. That sounds awesome. Sounds awesome. Sounds like a way to watch movies or consume, content on the go, like in a car with kids or in a camper with kids or something like that, or any situation where you have local network being broadcasted from a Raspberry Pi to then convert and transcode some video to the people that are around. Sounds super cool. Is it advised? I don't know. I'd say go for it. Because, I mean, if it's a single purpose device, if your goal is to make this, this totally portable Plex, broadcaster, I'm going to call it Plex broadcaster. I'm making this stuff up as we go. If that's your goal and you trust the people that are connecting, obviously you have secure passwords and all of that. And then on top of that, your device that you're using can handle that traffic as well as transcoding and everything else. I think that sounds really awesome. I think it sounds awesome for like a van with kids or an RV with kids where you're like, okay, everyone, let's all watch the same movie, at the same time with your devices that are in your hand. I'm making this up, but I can see where you're going with this possibly, or maybe I'm going too far. But then I wouldn't use that as a general purpose device to then have a bunch of random people then connecting and doing, possibly nefarious things that, if that network's up 24/7 in some public place, that doesn't sound like the best place to then put your Plex media server. Sounds cool though, like for experimentation to see if it works. Sounds awesome. I like where this is going. Wick Emmanuel, to tie in the RV conversation with solar panel conversation, I want to buy a used school bus off eBay, $3,500, strip it out, convert it to an RV, stuff it with technology, solar panels on the roof, and a science experiment of sorts to take the family cross country in it. Apparently, this is the thing that others are doing. Google schoolies. And now to find a way to convince the wife that it's a great idea. I think it sounds awesome too. Stripping out a school bus and just loading it full of tech. Yeah, sign me up. Sign me up for sure. That sounds awesome. I'll have to look it up. Uyan, My favorite cryptocurrency proof of work analogy. Imagine imagine if keeping your car idling 24/7 solved Sudokus, and you could trade it in for heroin. Wow, it sounds interesting. Yeah. But you would have to also throw in that your car, it's more than idling. So imagine if your car's RPMs were redlining for 24/7. Because idle is generally what PCs or machines do when they're just on, right? So I would adjust that to temper expectations to say, imagine if keeping your car idling at redline RPMs for 24/7 that produce Sudokus, and you could trade it in for then heroin, I guess. Only because like the idle piece gives the illusion that like, okay, it's just sipping power. No, it is absolutely not. It is balls to the wall, hash this thing, crunch these numbers as fast as you possibly can. Obviously you could limit it or tune it, but then, what's the point? But yeah, I like it. Techno Tim, it's just Alex, planning to spun up a VM for only Bitcoin wallet, not planning to on mine. Yeah. I'm not, no time soon. Nope. I did it bare metal on my 3090 just because my brother keeps asking me, and he'll say, you just have that 39, you're just sitting there, doing nothing. He'll poke me all day long. And so I thought, you know what, I'll do this to see. And I started getting curious too, because I know what video cards he's using. He's using my old video cards that were from me, and he's using old machines that I handed down to him. So I'm like, okay, you want to play this game? I'll run it, and I'll tell you what my hash rate is. And then he was just like, I don't know why you're wasting that thing doing nothing all the time. So I think now even like telling him what my rate was with this 3090, it even fired him up even more. But yeah, I totally agree. It's super fun though. Married Geek Guy, nice, finally made it to a stream. Love the videos. Hey, thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome. Heard the cattle. All right. See some geeks get married. There is hope for others. All right. Uyan, there's no time. There's no hope for me. Sure there is. There's always hope. I totally agree. Alpha HQ 101. Curious why you choose Proxmox over ESXI. Let me grab a drink because this is going to be a long-winded answer. I'll keep it short. This comes up a lot, and so don't get me wrong. ESXI, fantastic product. I used it for a long time. I used ESXI 4, 5. I can't remember if I went to 6 or if that's when I jumped ship. I use VMware Player, VMware Workstation. I've used a lot of VMware's products, and don't get me wrong, they're awesome. They're super performant. But when you start to get into running a home lab at home, it gets expensive. Now I know there are people who are going to say, hey, if you join a VMware group, you get a subscription for this amount of cost. But there's this prerequisite that you have to join a group, then you have to pay money. Or some people will say, yeah, I work for an enterprise and I get all of this for free, which, I don't. And so a lot of it had to do with this jump that I had to make from I think it was ESXi 5 to 6. And what seems to happen to me a lot was when I go from major version, sometimes even minor version, they drop hardware support. I get it. They're not going to put development efforts or software development hours into developing drivers or maintaining drivers for this thing, video card or a NIC or you name it, a RAID adapter from 10 years ago, right? It just doesn't make financial sense for them. So they end up dropping a lot of hardware support. They dropped hardware support from one of my NICs, and then I had to go and find this. I had to repack the ISO, like do a lot of stuff I've never done before, which is totally fine. Nothing against that. But I had to create this ISO, pack my own drivers, put it in there, just so a network card that worked yesterday will work today after an update. And the same went for some of my hardware adapters. I had to do the same thing. And so I'm like, no problem there. Not a big deal. But then I got to a point where it's like, oh, I kind of want ZFS or I want these other things, and I want some enterprise-like features maybe. I want to cluster some of my hypervisors. I have more than one server. I want to do cool things like vMotion. And that's all behind a paywall. I get it. They're a business. They absolutely have to make money, but I don't have that kind of money to spend on that at home, especially for experimentation. I'll be done in a little bit because I have nothing but good things to say about ESXI. Don't take this as like they're a bad company or I would never choose them. Oh, absolutely I would choose them. It just didn't fit into my budget. And the last thing is, I think with five or six, they ended up limiting how many cores you can allocate to a virtual machine. And so for me, I think that ended up meaning I could allocate 4 cores per virtual machine. And for the most part, that's going to be fine. But you know what? I have, 14 cores, 28 threads on one CPU, and I over allocate my stuff because why not? And so I just didn't want to have, okay, well, every virtual machine now can only have 4 cores. And maybe that's a better design than what I have going, but I saw that as a limitation. And that was kind of it for me. I mean, and this was even before I had a server. I mean, this was on my, 2, 3, 4 Homelab servers ago when it was my old desktop where I had a Core i7. I had a Core i7. I only had 2 virtual machines running on there. And I wanted to give both 8 threads and I couldn't do it. It was 4 each. So anyways, long story short, I've been using, I started searching for other things. I needed an easy way to pass through GPUs. I saw that Proxmox fit the bill for some of the enterprise-like features I wanted. It was open sourced and based on Linux, so I knew driver support was always going to be there. And if not, it was going to be super easy to install drivers myself. Relatively easy, right? A lot easier than an ISO that, is distributed by a company where they don't include those drivers. And then on top of that, I didn't want to have to worry about a hardware RAID adapter anymore. That was not a requirement for me. And I didn't want it to be a requirement anymore because I saw like a lot of systems were using ZFS. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just, my requirement now is just buying a little bit more RAM. Instead of buying a hardware RAID adapter, I'm just going to buy a little bit more RAM. And so again, those are trade-offs. That's kind of why I made the switch. Now, I'm not saying like everyone should make that switch, or I'm not saying ESXi is a bad product. I love VMware. It's super awesome. I wish there was a way for them to offer something, to a home labber, that was relatively priced or that was open for people to tinker with. But if you go to open source, that stuff is open as it can be. The code's right there. Compile it yourself, change the code, run it yourself if you want. But fortunately, we don't have to do that because Proxmox does that for us. Anyways, I'm not saying it's a bad product. A ton of companies, almost every company I've ever worked for has run it in their enterprise, and it's great at what it does, and it's super, super performant. When you have something that's really focused on being a hypervisor, it's surprisingly performant and lightweight. And, when you have something that then becomes a general purpose operating system that puts stuff into it, you can get some bloat. I didn't see that with the ESXi. It was awesome. I mean, I got some of the best performance out of any hypervisor I've ever run. And I've run, between Proxmox, ESXi, Hyper-V, and then you can have Type 2 ones. ESXi was always the most performant. So anyways, I went off on a tangent on that, but nothing against it. I wanted to use something that was open source and flexible and that fit my needs and some of my requirements. Mathny, I have a dual boot Ubuntu and Windows, but still have the KDE full installed on my Ubuntu. All right, yeah. I was just talking about KDE. I used to be a huge fan of KDE, and then I bounced all around. I'm kind of back to just vanilla Ubuntu now. I should give Mint a try again, or a different flavor of Ubuntu, or a different flavor of Linux altogether. But I was a huge fan of KDE for a long time. It felt so modern at the time, especially their mouse cursor. It was just like this big chunky arrow. They had this little stubby, not the pointer piece. The pointer piece was stubby or chunky, and then I don't know. These are bad descriptions. Anyways, the KDE Arrow by far is still my favorite mouse cursor of them all. Hands down, beats any mouse cursor or mouse pointer that I've seen in a long time. Papa 288. What do you do for full-time work? Software engineer. I work. I build software. This is my hobby. One of my many hobbies. So yeah, software engineer. I work at a small company. Used to work for a lot of larger companies, but now work for a small startup. Sailu, would you still recommend Docker clusters, even if you only have one host and not planning on getting any more hosts anytime soon? No, Sailu, I wouldn't. So when you say Docker clusters, I'm assuming you mean you're meaning Kubernetes, and which arguably runs on Docker or Containerd, but these are all details. So I think to answer your question, if you don't need a cluster of containers, should you still use containers, or should you still use Kubernetes? If you don't need a cluster of containers, I'll put it that way, take the product out of there. No, you could do a single host with just containers. That's just a Docker machine running Docker on that machine, along with something like Portainer. Totally fine. Yeah, and you'll still get all the benefits of containerization without all the overhead of individual machines for each of those services. Yeah, totally fine. And then I guess I'm going to break this up. The other part of the question is, should you use Kubernetes if you're only doing a single host and you're not going to really replicate those containers or make those containers available on other hosts or nodes? That's really up to you. The only reason why I've done that in the past is one, because I know how popular Kubernetes is, and it wasn't a popularity game. It was, I wanted to know this. I wanted to understand it. We use it at work. I use it during my software development process. Most of my containers in public cloud and private cloud, I wanted them run in Kubernetes just so I understood it, just so I knew it. Maybe that's not right for you. And if it's not right for you, yeah, absolutely go with Docker on a machine with Portainer. 100% go that way. It's really going to be up to you. Maybe I'm not explaining it well and articulating it well, but at the end of the day, I needed to know from my job and for my career in the future, I needed to know Kubernetes more than at an arm's length, right? More than arm's length, more than just kind of understanding what it is and what it does. I needed to know how to issue kube control commands, understand the architecture, understand how it works, understand how, kind of not so much the inner workings, but the public API stuff I needed to understand. What do I do in this situation? How do I deploy workloads? How do I create ingresses? Those types of things. And that might be a little more detailed than people need to know. So yeah, great question. I would say start with Docker only, because sometimes containerization itself is new for people. If they're just doing virtual machines only, sometimes containerization is a huge leap. And I say if you make that leap and that's where you stay, good for you, absolutely good for you, because it means you're taking on this whole entire new tech stack and this new kind of service paradigm. Where it's not individual processes running on individual servers. It's more of, containerized services running on a server or multiple if you go to the end of Kubernetes. But yeah, I could talk about this all day. But yeah, I would say, for you, if you're never going to do it and you don't want to know anything about Kubernetes because it just gets too complicated, yeah, go Docker only. That's my challenge to you. Docker, Portainer, because it's fantastic once you get it. Especially when it comes to dependencies and patching and updating individual processes. It makes it so easy. Mirinal, I bought the StarTech rack. You haven't loved it. I love it too. That thing is solid. It's a beast. I mean, it's steel. It took me a couple hours to put together. Like I thought, yeah, here we go. Yeah, I got this. No, it took a while to put together. I think I put it together at least 2 or 3 pieces backwards a few times. The instructions aren't the greatest. I mean, they're a little bit better than IKEA instructions, but pretty on par with IKEA, where, it's just nowhere is just diagrams and, a lot of things left to interpretation. But yeah, I love my rack too. It's fantastic. I don't regret anything about it One day I'm going to customize it and put my own panels on it and make it really cool. I haven't gotten there yet. Penguin Airlines, it's going well overall, Tim. Hopefully I can get a Raspberry Pi cluster online this weekend. All right, man. Yeah, let me know how it goes. Sigor, my Dell T7500 is the same way. It will sometimes get squirrely and not shut down properly or start up properly. So I just leave it running all the time. Yeah, I've had that too. I've had that too on some of my old machines. I was just like, I hope this thing doesn't reboot, or I hope it doesn't power off when I'm not here, because yeah, I've had machines like that too. And it's especially nerve-wracking when you travel and you're just like, oof. You know, last time this machine didn't start up properly, and I've had to power them down to drain power. Hey, real quick, I apologize. I missed some of these follows. XCOE, COEMP, thanks for follow. Appreciate it. GC Cost Stabber. I'm going to GCO, G-Cop Stabber. That's what I'm going. And Robin Who, thanks for follow. Appreciate it. And the dude with the baby or two. I like it. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. The names are all right. I like it. I love just super general names that are put together. And I mean, that one's very specific, but it's super great. So, hey, thanks for the follow, guys. Appreciate it. Try Pi Hole on LXC. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that will totally work too. I missed one. Silu, Sunset Golfer. It is on Docker. Got it up and running myself. Yeah, for sure. Oh, I thought you were talking about my infrastructure that you noticed in the video. I was like, man, this person's got a good eye. Good eye. People do notice a lot of things in my videos. They're like, hey, you have a million block rules. I mean, that one's kind of staring you in the face, but people pick up on a lot of stuff that I'm like, okay, is anyone going to see this or notice? Yeah, sometimes I'm like, you know, some things that I probably shouldn't show, I do show, and I'm like, should I blur this out or not? And I lean towards not, because I'm like, okay, I trust people. And then I'm like, there are some people that will figure this stuff out. So anyways, it's a good note. If you ever see anything where I publicly expose any of my secrets, tell me right away, but tell me privately. Don't post it in the video and say, hey, your SSH key is right there. Not that I've ever done it, but you know, it's like the whole security vulnerability thing. Like, you don't post it publicly. You let the company know, let them address it, and then yeah. Anyways, Married Geek Guy, I got bored, picked up an old Barracuda and put PFSense on it. Nice. That's a good way to repurpose it. Man, I haven't heard about Barracuda. They did spam firewalls and network firewalls for a while. Used to always hear it on NPR all the time. They would always advertise there. Maybe they still do. Married Geek Guy, no, Alpha HQ. Hi, Techno Tim. First time joining your chat after watching some of your videos on YouTube. Curious why you chose Proxmox over ESXI. Oh, I answered that. Yeah, I think you got the long-winded version. You got the long-winded version. Tiki Saw 1, sorry, yes, Raspberry Pi, Ubuntu 2004 and 2010. Awesome. I think we talked about that. Great boxes, because just needed a VPN firewall. I totally agree. It's like a little 1U box. I remember seeing those, I don't know, like 10 years ago in a data center. I think they were like bright blue, and they actually had the logo of the Barracuda in front, I think. I can't remember. Holy Merc, need the latest version of Pi bootloader and change the boot. There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Holy Merc. Built a fire. The webcam has some flickering in the top left corner. There's a few videos. Yeah, thank you. These are all follow-ups to, I think, that conversation. All right, I'm almost on par with where I normally am. So I do have to wrap things up. I said I was going to cut things a little bit early. I'm going to look for direct mentions. That doesn't mean direct mention me unless you have something you really want to ask. So I do apologize. No, I should have just read through them. Oh my gosh. All right. No mentions, which is great. Okay. Anyways, man, thank you guys so much for joining in today. I appreciate you spending some time on your Saturday. I know that we have great weather across at least the U.S., especially central U.S., Midwest. We have great weather, so I appreciate you spending some time with me, even if it's just listening or tuning in. I appreciate it. Man, thank you guys. Man, Manuel, dude, thanks for the bits. Appreciate it. Great show, Tim. See you all next week. Thank you. Appreciate it. Which is a great segue into more thank yous. Yeah, thank you so much for follows, for bits, for subs, for resubs. I really appreciate it. Never, ever required, but greatly appreciate it. I thank you so much. But really appreciate you for spending time. That's what I was talking about in the beginning. Thank you so much for spending time take your time out of your day to join me. If you have more questions or want to bounce ideas off of other people other than me and getting, only my opinion, we have a great Discord community full of lots of people you see in these channels. Thank you, PC Geek. Right there is how you can join. Lots of great folks like PC Geek, like Manny, Manuel, Holy Merc in here, who know this stuff, who help out a ton in our Discord server. So I encourage you to join. And even if you just want to lurk, totally fine too. You might find that, someone's doing something similar to you, or you might just learn from reading and never saying anything. I encourage you to join. No pressure though, but you probably should because it's pretty awesome. I will be back, at least on Twitch next week. I got something coming for you a little bit later this week too, and I got something that came out this morning, so I appreciate it. All of you guys have a fantastic rest of the weekend. Stay safe and be good to each other. Well, real quick. Philippe Fracha, thanks for follow. Appreciate it. Welcome and goodbye. So stay safe and be good to each other. Take care, folks. Adios.